Hi, this is Rabbi Orlofsky, and welcome to the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. And whether you're watching with our friends and producers over at Torah Anytime, or wherever you watch and listen to your podcast, as always, it is wonderful to have you along for the experience. And some little bits of business. Speaking about my friends over at Torah Anytime, we just had the Torah Anytime annual fundraiser, and I want to thank everyone who contributed to Torah Anytime, and particularly those who contributed to my page. And I went through all of the donations and the people, and I saw a lot of our usual listeners who donated out of Karas HaTov to Torah Anytime for making this possible. And I thank you personally. Really, it's a wonderful thing. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. The Orlofsky Pesach program in the Nov Kinneret in Tveria, we have a few rooms for the first part of Pesach. Everything else is sold out. If you want to come just for the Seder and then go back home and make the rest of Pesach, we have some rooms available for that. Otherwise, we'll just wait till next year. And I feel really bad because Castles tells me that they are getting inundated with calls of people who wanted to come. I told you this was going to happen. I'm sorry. I'll have to maybe find a larger location next year or something. I don't know what to tell you. But, so one group called up, they wanted 8 rooms. Another group called up, they wanted 12 rooms. I don't have them, So we'll have to find a larger location, but I have a chance. I don't want anyone to be left out. I want you all to be there. Okay, and our sponsorship for this episode. Dear Rabbi Orlofsky, it has been 30 years since I had the zchus of having you as my Mashgiach Ruchani at Yeshiva Ohr David. I was Mashgiach in the yeshiva. I remember I went to recruit once, and this fellow was really in public school. He was in NCSY. And they said, they were introducing me. They said, the Mashgiach in the yeshiva. And someone says, why are they bringing us the guy who works in the kitchen? That's the Mashgiach Kashrus. That was the Mashgiach Ruchani. And of course, the Rosh Yeshiva, just to make sure that it didn't go to my head, used to refer to me instead of Moron HaMashgiach. They used to call me Moron HaMashgiach. Anyway, looking back, it is clear that your guidance didn't just impact my years in yeshiva, it has shaped the trajectory of my life. You could tell that I had an impact if he's using a word like trajectory, because I try to at least help people improve their vocabulary. And by extension, the lives of my children. It brings me immense pleasure to see the genuine excitement my 2 daughters have whenever a new Rabbi Orlofsky show is released. Your Torah and your perspective have become a staple in our home. I cannot be more moved by this. In fact, one of my daughters is currently in seminary, and after a few months in the system, she has officially concluded that the world is missing one vital institution, a Rabbi Orlofsky Seminary, girls who want to hear the truth and get the most out of their year. I mentioned this already, that I mentioned on a previous podcast that my bookcase was falling apart, and I was contacted by one of our avid listeners who happens to be a carpenter, full Israeli. He listens to the podcast, even though his native language is Hebrew, and he offered to make me a new bookcases. So when those come in, boy, I'm going to have him on the show to talk about it. But in the meantime, this is a wonderful idea. So if anybody out there wants to put together a seminary for me to run, the theme being get the most out of girls who want to hear the truth and get the most out of the year. I think that's a great line. I would like to dedicate this shiur in honor of my Aishes Chayil Anna and I don't know if this is Anna or Anna. I'm going to guess Anna because it's A-N-A. I think it was Anna, it would be A-N-N-A. So I'm just riffing here. And my children Danielle and Aliza. those are easy. I can read those. They make me so proud every single day with their tireless dedication to chesed, kiruv, and avodas Hashem. Wow, you guys must be really special to have a dad want to sponsor an episode just to give you guys shout outs of how much he thinks of you. Because most of them I get these things like, I'm sponsoring this podcast in honor of my miserable children. Hopefully in the zchus of this, they'll turn out to be decent people. Of course, that's never happened, but anyway. Finally, please consider this dedication a completely transparent and lightly veiled bribe. My daughter is ready and willing to work at your Pesach program. She's hardworking, high energy, and already knows all your jokes. She's basically overqualified. If that doesn't work, we'll settle for a Shabbos invite. We promise to laugh at all the stories we've already heard on the show. If your daughter wants to work, we have a few spots open, but I want you to know it's not going to be a lot of fun because most of the day you're going to be running around with very little children. And, I know we would love to have you participate more in the program, but if you're coming, there's going to be a lot for you to do. So if that sounds appealing and anybody would like to spend their Pesach running around with a bunch of little children, we have some openings. But people are like, I'll come and, I'll work a little bit on Shabbos and Yom Tov. Yeah, that's not how it works. You're coming, you're going to be taking care of these kids. So if that sounds like a fun Pesach to you, please let me know. And we have some openings, but, it's not the kind of thing I would do to my own kids. But it will be good food and nice accommodations and wonderful people, and it won't be at night. It's only during the day, but it's still a lot. So if that appeals to you, then I think that's a wonderful thing. We'd love to have you along. Also, an update on the merch. I mentioned this that someone sent me, an email with clips of every time I said we're working on the merch. Well, my daughter is actually working on it now, and hopefully it will be ready in time for the Pesach program, and then of course we will make it available to everybody else. We will have Rabbi Orlofsky Show mugs and jerseys, not t-shirts, because girls don't want to wear the t-shirts and have to wear a shirt underneath it. I mean, that's kind of self-defeating. So I have jerseys, and I don't know what else we're going to make. We'll see. I'm not making anything, but somebody's in charge of it, and that's what's important. And Baruch Hashem, my kids are working furiously on this Pesach program. I'm also going to be there. In fact, I have this conundrum, and this is sort of an introduction to what I'm going to talk about now, because I tend to repeat my themes. I remember Rabbi Brown once. I had the zchus to go with him to Rabbi Moshe Shapiro's Shiurim, and I said to him, he said this before, so he says no, he was dealing with it from a different point of view, and he explained to me the difference. And then he said something that was very profound, as many of the things he says are profound. He said, an artist has only so many colors, but he can make endless paintings. I thought that was interesting. And so I also try to come back to themes from a slightly different point of view, but every now and then something just like sets me off. And this was one of my questions that, since I mentioned the Pesach program, that I was trying to decide in the dedication. He mentioned, I know all of your jokes. A lot of people know a lot of my material. When I was a scholar in residence at Gateways, so I tried to come up with a brand new approach to dealing with my shiurim on Pesach, because I wanted to come up with a different theme and develop different shiurim in a different direction. And my son Yaakov said to me, you're making a mistake. People want to hear your classics. They want to hear the same ones again that they enjoy. I'm told the story already. I was in Melbourne, Australia, and I was doing one of my most famous talks, which is Why Be Jewish. And this woman came over and said, this is the 11th time I'm hearing this speech. And I said, oh, I'm sorry, I could have done something else. She says, no, I came dafka to hear it again. Yeah, because it's based on the first two lines of Mesilas Yesharim, which says this is the yesod and the shorish of all avodas Hashem. I just develop it in a easily accessible way. But of course, the Mesilas Yesharim says the only way you get benefit from his sefer is by constant chazara, going over it and over it. So people tell me, I just got an email from somebody else. They said, I was just listening to your shiur with Rabbi Nissel, and I always listen, especially the two-parters, I always listen to it 2 or 3 times because there's so much material there. It's true, we pack in a lot. So I was always in a conundrum. Should I come up with brand new material, or should I do my classics that everybody likes? Yeah, Frank Sinatra sang the same 7 songs for the last 20 years of his career. And everyone loved them because they knew what to expect and they look forward to it. I may have told this story recently. I feel like I did, but I'm not sure. When I was a kid, when I was a teenager, so on public television, they had this show from England called Monty Python's Flying Circus. These were a group of people who were professionals. They went to Oxford, Cambridge. They were very educated. One was a lawyer, one was a doctor, And very, very intelligent people. And they did a comedy show, which I thought was the funniest thing in the world. And wherever I went, I lived in a house with 4 TVs. 1 or 2 of my brothers had to sit on either side and say, this isn't funny. Why are you watching this? This isn't funny. And I said, then go away. But they wanted to dafka sit there and tell me it's not funny. But we were into Monty Python, and it was just, we thought it was the funniest thing in the world. So they performed live at the city center. Unbeknownst to me, when they did the Lumberjack song, one of the Lumberjacks was in fact Paul McCartney, because all the rock stars were fans of Monty Python. In fact, when they put out their movie, Monty Python, the Holy Grail, they couldn't get anyone to underwrite it, no studio. And so all the rock stars gave them money. They never thought they would see their money back. They made a lot of money on that investment. So they came in and they just did their favorite skits that we all knew already. So one of their most favorite skits is the Dead Parrot sketch. I'm not going to go over it here, but it's very, very funny, hysterically funny. Anyway, at different points throughout this show, it was a live show. It was all filled with Monty Python crazies, John Cleese would come out carrying the cage with the dead parrot, and everybody would go wild, and he'd walk off. And he did this 3 times. And the show was over, and they turn on the house lights, and they put up on the big screen, get out, whatever it was. And then John Cleese walks out again with the parrot in the cage, and everyone goes wild, and they turn down the lights, and they do that one last sketch, So I'm always of 2 minds. Should I do my classics that everybody enjoys, or should I make up all new material? I'm not really sure. But I just share that with you. So sometimes I return to common themes that people tend to enjoy, I find. And I was waiting for this podcast. Everyone knows this already, that I very often say, before a podcast, I think, what should I talk about this week? But I've actually been anticipating filming this week because I know what I want to talk about. It is almost Purim. I put on my son's Purim tie. This is Yaakov. Used to wear this every Purim. This is Yaakov's Purim tie. And Purim is almost here. And, of course, in the Jewish magazines that my wife gets, and I go to the recipe section, the 3 of the 4 publications are dealing with Shalach Manos. Not the Hamodia. The Hamodia's got other stuff to talk about, They did have a recipe. They always put in 2 recipes. It was like mini meatloafs or something like that, But these other ones are dealing with Shalach Manos. And I read this and I just said, as a public service, I have to stop people who might actually read this and think, oh, I might do that. For the love of God, do not do any of this. Okay? Don't. Let me explain to you Shalach Manos. Shalach Manos, find the easiest receptacle that stays together. Do not use anything that involves paper grass. Do not do anything that involves cellophane. We used to do that, where we would get some kind of a tray, and then we would sit there with the cellophane, and we'd use like 4 rolls of tape to try to get and hold the whole thing together. Don't do it. What our Shalach Manos receptacle of choice now is a bag. And depending on what we're putting in decides the size of the bag. And we fill it up with enough stuff so that we don't have to stick in any grass or ripped up paper just to be able to fill up the bag. Just buy a smaller bag. Always include something home-baked unless you are a terrible baker. Then don't include something home-baked. I make my own hamantashen because, like most Jewish foods, they don't have them here in Israel. What do I mean by that? Do they sell hamantashen? Yes, they do. But the dough is not the correct hamantashen dough. I don't know why. It's like hard as a rock and tasteless. I don't know why they do it that way. It's an Israeli thing. It must be from all those years spent draining the swamps or something. I don't know. The ones in America, mamish, taste like cake. And the only acceptable filling for hamantashen is prune, or what they call lekva. That's it. There's 2 acceptable ones, prune and poppy seed. The purpose of the poppy seed is in case you accidentally bite into it thinking it's prune, so that you appreciate the prune. But prune hamantashen, you cannot get it in this country, in Israel, right? It's one of the sacrifices we make when we move here. You can get chocolate hamantashen. Why? Why would I buy those? You can get it filled with tamarim, which is about as close as they can get. You can buy mun. You can get the ones with the poppy seeds. But you cannot get prune hamantashen in this country. I went to Chipakol, and they bring in Reisman's hamantashen. Chocolate. We're the prune ones. If you're going to bring them in already from America, bring in the prune ones. When I was teaching Sameach, Benji Reisman, whose grandparents owned Reisman's bakery, I was, on a rant once about this. So I get very emotional about my prune hamantashen, and he sent me from Reisman's a box, like a big box of prune hamantashen. We used it for a long time. We held on to them. We treasured them. So here I make my own hamantashen. I make my own dough, and I have to make my own lekva. Sometimes you can find prune filling, but not often. So I stew up the prunes with the different ingredients. I make my prune filling, and I always make too much because there's no way to put that much prune into a hamantash. That's just the way it is. Yeah, but I make the prune ones, and then I think I make blueberry ones just to, create a little contrast or something. But I do that. One year, we made my wife's sweet noodle kugel. This is a big job. We were making lots and lots of noodles, and then you have to. I had a giant vat of it, and you're putting in all the ingredients, like mixing it like a cauldron. I was a witch, bring it together, and then you put it into these little tins. It was delicious. Well, a lot of people asked us for the recipe, and to this day, it was maybe 30 years ago I did it. To this day, people still call it the Rabbi Orlofsky Purim Kugel. Yeah, Well, not Rabbi Orlofsky, the Orlofsky's Purim kugel. And it was delicious, but something home baked that you put in. Yeah. My children sometimes force me to do a theme. Everyone's out of the house now, basically, so they can do their own crazy. But there was one year we did a heart theme. Maybe it was after my heart attack, I don't remember. But I got little heart-shaped pans, and I made cakes in the shape of a heart. And I wrote, Ksavtim al luchais libecha, in icing. It was really very special. And we made that, but I'm going to make something that I know is yummy, that people want. And then I'll find fun things to put in. I always put in a tea, just because I like tea. So I'll put in a tea. One year I put in a W, but that's a different story. I'll put in a large candy bar, parv, because of its milchig. The whole point of Shalach Manos is something you're going to use at the Purim Suda. So if you put in a cake or you put in a kugel or something that people are actually going to use. I have a neighbor who always sends 2 challahs and a bottle of wine, because you're going to use this at the Seder, at the Purim Suda. So don't use it at the Seder. That's going to be a real problem. I'll put in a fruit, I'll put in something like that, something that people are going to enjoy. One year was a Purim Mishulish, and we did a 3 theme. Everything had to be triple. I found these triple lollipops, I found triple things. So one of the things I found was I made a 3-bean salad. That's a lot of work. And put in little containers and put them in. People enjoyed that. It was something nice. Or it's not going to be done at the Seder at all, but it's going to be something that... I have a son-in-law who his Shalach Manos, and he brings it early in the day, is a cold cut sandwich. I know that doesn't sound very impressive on the surface, but it's a baguette with different types of cold cuts and different kind of spreads, and I think he puts in coleslaw, something like that, wraps it up, and it's like the greatest thing ever. And I asked him, what do you do? What makes your baguette so special? Do you use a special sauce? Do you use this? Do you use different cold cuts? He goes, nope, everything's ordinary. The reason it's so good is because people are busy a whole day Purim and they never eat. So when you finally sit down and eat a real baguette with cold cuts, that's very exciting. People are very happy to have it. Clever. Since the real halacha is something that's going to be used at the Suda, I always make 1 or 2 real Shalach Manos. What does that mean? Something that I know is going to be used at the Seder. So I get a platter and I make a fruit platter. And cut up fruit, different types of fruit, things like that. And I know people are going to take this and put it out at their Purim Suda for dessert. And in fact, they do. I send that with a bottle of wine. Okay. Like I say, then you have the Shalach Manos that are like the little cute Shalach Manos that people, pass around to other people. And if you're lucky, you get it back from somebody else. And because I always like my own stuff anyway. So, and then I get all my prune hamantasha back. There's been more than 1 year that my kids were upset that there was no hamantasha left over for them. Because we made too many Shalach Manos and I didn't make enough hamantasha. But that to me is a Shalach Manos. Shalach Manos should be something that's small, that's cute, I know not everybody has the time, and not everybody has the skill, and not everybody has the money. Somebody would send a Shalach Manos where it was either an orange or a grapefruit, and there was like 2 little, candies for eyes, and licorice for the hair. And that's what they sent. So there you go, say with it. It's cute, How much of that are people going to eat? I don't know. But that's the idea. I want to send something that I know people are going to eat, they're going to look at it, they're going to enjoy it, and have fun. One time, we used to sit around when the kids were here and we'd try to come up with themes for Shalach Manos, and whatever I thought up, the kids would say, that's corny. Now, if you're not familiar with this term corny, that's because there was what was called urban humor, which was considered more intellectual and high class, and then there was, out in Iowa, and they used to say, how would it play in Peoria, if anyone's old enough to remember those TV show Hee-Haw, with that kind of level of comedy, and those were called corn jokes, because they were like corny, they were out there in the middle of no place, It's a whole different style of humor. But anyway, it was very interesting. Some of the highest rated shows on TV in the 1960s were in a shared universe. There was the Beverly Hillbillies, Green Acres, and Petticoat Junction. They were all in, they were all in the same. Mr. Drucker, he was the glue that bound those three stories together. It was a shared universe. Who heard of such a thing back then? And they canceled it, even though their ratings were good, because they didn't want to do corny humor anymore. They felt these were too corny. So instead they wanted more urban, exciting things that nobody wanted to watch. But anyway, it's not important. So they said it was corny. So I said, okay, then we'll make a corn theme. I made corn salad, we got corn chips, I don't remember all the things we got, I got candy corn. I had to bring that in from America. They don't have it here, And it ends up I have a neighbor who was very upset. His name was Rabbi Korn. And he says, I always do a corn theme. I said, oh, I'm sorry, but this is our year. This is our year to do corn. Anyway, I've spoken about all this in the past. This is a chazorah. But this is the chiddush. The chiddush is that the other Jewish publications all came out with Shalach Manos ideas. I won't tell you which publications did which. It's not important. All I want to point out is that this should never be done by anybody. And if I stop one person from allowing their life to drift far away, then I have done something worthwhile. Okay, the first one is called Flower-Powered Shalach Manos. Floral arrangements beautify everything, and nothing says you're important to me more than flowers and chocolate. The photos on the next page may look daunting, but don't be fooled. That's the power of flowers. Whether you want to scale up the suggestions to make an impressive impact or tone them down to a single stem. Yeah, I've included both versions. I don't want to be busy with fresh flowers the night before Purim. Dried or four blooms do an amazing job too. Okay, there's no flowers in Shalach Manos. Now, I know there's something called edible flowers. I know this because my kids, one time when we went to America, when my kids were little, so we go to exciting places, Hershey Park, Universal Studios, and the big supermarket over there in Brooklyn. Pomegranate. And they just wanted to walk around Pomegranate and look at it. I don't know what is so fascinating about this. Someone tried to explain to me once. He goes, they have mayonnaise that comes in a tube. I said, is it better than Hellman's? They go, not really. I said, then what do I want it for, But you can go to the meat counter and see aged meat, and also they have edible flowers. Well, maybe that's a svara. Yeah? Okay. Here is a Shalach Manos, okay? What you need for this: a fishbowl or short round cylinder, size of your choice, in plastic or glass. You have to go out and buy a fishbowl. Pebbles, candy-coated nuts, chocolate-coated nuts, dinner mints, chocolate lentils, and M&Ms. Okay, is that really what you want to fit in your fishbowl? I mean, we had one year where we did a fish theme because Ada is Mazel Dogim, and my daughter actually brought little fish bowls and put fish in them and put them on each table. The problem is nobody wants them afterwards, and it seems sad to flush them all down the toilet. And since people don't really like to eat goldfish, you know, even in a sauce. Anyway, flowers of your choice. A small piece of floral foam soaked in water, placed in a disposable schnapps cup. Place the floral foam and bottle in the fish bowl. Add the pebbles to the height of the floral foam. So I don't know if this foam over here is necessary, but they put in a little foam here and this and some flowers. Don't do this, please. I'm doing this for your own good. Trust me. Yeah. A vase of violets. You need a tall vase, which again you have to buy in a special place. See this tall vase or vase? Wrapped chocolate bark or other flat, long food to be tied to the vase. I guess that's this. I don't know. And then flowers and ribbons and wrapped food items on sticks, such as unicorn lollipops or chocolate-dipped marshmallows. And you stick them in with the flowers. If you want to send somebody flowers, just send them flowers. Okay, this really, people have to stop here. Oh, I guess this doesn't come with it. It looks like it's a brick. Yeah. Timeless toil. What you need: velvet ribbon, clear foldable plastic boxes, hard lucite boxes, toil patterned foldable cardboard boxes, food to fill the boxes. That's like an aside. Also, you should put some food on this. And the color of your choice: caramel, popcorn, nuts, chocolate, truffles. Mini liquor bottles. Where are those? I guess they're over there someplace. Yeah. And then a rectangle or a square tray. You better hope that it fills it up, because otherwise you're going to have to now go for the cellophane. And then flowers. And of course, floral foam to put the flowers in. Make a tray of brownies. Could even do blondies. I'm okay with either one. Color block. This is made out of stackable black and white checkered mugs. 4 for $26. Well, since you need 4 to make this, that means you spent $26 just on the little cups for this Shalach Manos. You can buy the bags at Osha'ad for like 10 for 5 shekels. I think it might be cheaper than that. What you need: black and white checkered kitchen dish of your choice, red flowers, floral foam, red velvet. Is there any food in this at all? Stick with black and white items: black and white cookies, chocolate covered nuts, white dinner mints. Okay. Listen, if anybody reads these things, don't send this to me, please. I love you. Don't do it. Don't spend $26 on cups. For that money, you can send me a roast beef. Now here, we went with flowers and candles. We moved beyond that. velvet ribbon, cylinder containers, a scented candle, which, by the way, is delicious at your Suda. You always want to take a bite out of a scented candle. Florals, a bud vase, candle tray, and food. If you're doing pink, do pink and white cookies, pink truffles, pink dinner mints, pink candy-coated almonds. Hamantaschen. What? Read my lips. Prune hamantaschen. Okay, now, in case you're not already on the verge of a breakdown, and you're actually thinking of doing these things because you're too cheap to buy Prozac, which would probably be more worthwhile, what could be better than making individual cookies? And there you make the cookies, and then you have to put a fondue on top of it, and then you have to write different things on the cookies to give it to people. Yeah, get right on that. Or you can make individual chocolates, which is also with your names on it and stamped and very exciting. And here are macaroons, which take an enormous amount of work and nobody wants them. Okay? Nobody wants macaroons. Trust me. All right. I don't want to be negative, but I am. I am what I am. Okay, this is what we're missing. This is what we need to work on. Personalized treat boards. You will need graphics printed on sticker paper, foam board, plastic cover or box, candy, glue gun, and double-sided tape. You will notice there is no food in this. I mean, you can buy like a little candy and stick it in, but all of that is aside from the fact. Look at this. You spent all that time and they gave you 2 little tiny candy bars. Like mini bars. Sorry, I'm really upset. I'm telling you, I read this and I was annoyed, and I have to tell you that one of the podcasts I made that got the most reaction was where I talked about things that annoyed me, and everyone's like, yeah, me too. So I hope this is annoying you. Sprinkles. The forecast calls for 100% chance of sprinkles. Make your Purim sparkle and twinkle. Nothing says happy quite like sprinkles. How about putting a few things into a bag and then sitting down having a cup of coffee and maybe learning a sefer about Purim? How about that instead of sprinkles? Do you think that might give you a smile on Purim? Nothing says happy quite like sprinkles. I created a custom sprinkle blend using white sugar sparkles, red and pink beads, and a touch of gold sprinkles. What you need: tray, toffee almonds, clear box for the almonds, mask cookies in the shape of a mask, mini tequila bottle with cork stopper. Oh yeah. And flowers. That's, of course, really what everyone needs to be working on going into Pesach. But we're not done. Here is a gentleman's gift. A leather box sets the tone. Doesn't say how much it costs. But in my experience, leather boxes are expensive. You can buy bags at Osha'ad. I think they're like 10 for 5 shekels, I think. This makes a Shalach Manos that's classy and fun. I have a better idea. take a little paper plate and put roast beef on it. That says classy. Jerky, beef jerky with rustic potato chips. It's cleverly labeled meat and potatoes. That is definitely clever. You know what would be more clever? Meat and potatoes. Nuts and bolts. What goes into there? It's basically peanuts, it looks like. Yeah. And of course, Cuban cigars, which are just like Waffelim. That's it. What you'll need, a leather box available on Amazon. Oh, I'm sure they're really cheap. Navy and red striped gross grain ribbon. Yeah, get that. Blue moss. Sure. Mini liquor bottles, beef jerky, rustic potato chips, assorted nuts, wafer rolls, wine bottle stopper available on Amazon, custom food labels. Okay. Oh, and then of course a lavender rustic arrangement. What you need: lucite section tray, scrapbook paper to line the tray, lavender linen spray. Really? There's a spray in this? Yeah, there it is. Very tasty. Floral pouch, small wine bottles, Dubai pecans, blueberry almonds, vegetable chips, spiced dried mango, natural dried pineapple, tea blends available at Bingo from the Nut Factory, 2 small jars, corked glass tubes, and coarse ribbon. Tulips done 2 ways. What you need: 3-section acrylic box available at hammond.com. Tulip paper plate accent available at altunastore.com. Twine and leaf ribbon available on Amazon. Custom tags available at Etsy. I don't know. I don't know why. Why is this necessary? Clown says, Happy Purim. What you need: green acrylic tray from Amazon, small glass bottle, 12 sandwich cookies, 8-ounce dark baking chocolate, colored baking chocolate, silicone letter mold, small candies and glue dots. Okay. And here is part of the clown get-up. You want to make some clowns, etc. I would love to see somebody work out the cost of each one of these things. So, I'm going to tell you a story. When I taught in seminary, I was teaching in seminary and yeshiva at the same time. And it's a concept of Purim shtick. I'm sure you've heard of Purim shtick. I was driving my car and I hear this terrible whistling. I don't know what it is. And I bring it into the service center. And he says, okay, leave the car, we'll get to it. And I pick it up later in the day. And he shows me someone stuck this whistle in my exhaust pipe. Apparently he thought it was Purim shtick. Ha 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 ha. I didn't have my car for an entire day. I had to pay for a taxi back and then a taxi back again, and 300 shekels for him to point out that there was a whistle there. A great Purim shtick. Yeah, cost me hundreds of shekels, but that was funny. Ha 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 ha. So in the seminary, they decided to do a shtick. They took all of the desks out of the classroom so they couldn't have class. And when the rabbi came in to teach, there was no place to sit. And of course, they had to take all of the things back in and set up the classroom, and they killed half the class. Yeah. In my class, because what Ebenezer Scrooge was to Christmas, I am to Purim. So these girls came in wearing paper bags over their head. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some students I've had over the years where a paper bag might be a good idea, but these actually were very fine young ladies, and they didn't need a paper bag over their head. And I did not acknowledge it at all. I didn't say anything. I just started teaching. And a girl raised her hand and says, Rabbi Orlofsky, you have any good ideas for Purim shtick? I said, Purim shtick? I said, you mean Purim shtick, where you disrupt an entire class and this Rav comes in ready to teach you about the meaning of Purim, and instead he can't teach because all of the tables and chairs were taken out? So you lost time learning Torah? Let me ask you a question. Which character in the Purim story would like to see Jews not learn Torah? I'll give you a multiple choice. Was it A, Mordechai, B, Esther, C, Haman? So which of the characters in the Purim story are you associating with for your Purim shtick? I said, you want some Purim shtick? Here's an idea. Why don't you go through your closets, because it's getting towards the end of the winter, and take all of those clothes that you don't plan on taking back and give them to poor people who don't have clothes to wear, so that they could also have some clothes to wear at the end of the winter. There's a good shtick. Hey, you want another shtick? Here's one. All that money that you were going to spend to go out to eat with your friends and get facials, how about give that to the poor people so they could buy food? Hey, there's a great Purim shtick. Hey, I got another one. How about, anyway, you get the idea. Suffice it to say, as I was in this particular rant, the girls with the paper bags took the bags off of their heads. And what in the world could you be thinking? What could be the possible purpose of this Purim shtick that mamish creates bittul Torah and takes us away from avodas Hashem, and you cost your Rebbe hundreds of shekels because you thought it would be funny? You know, that's a Purim shtick. It's not a Purim shtick. It's Maisa Amalek. You've thrown yourself into an ambatya roseches, into a boiling bathtub to cool it off and stop the Torah learning. That was the famous shmooze by Rav Chatzkel in Panovich. He says, what was Amalek? He says, they cooled off the bath. He says, you know who's Amalek? Anybody who tries to cool off the learning in the Beis Medrash. That's Amalek. When you decide to schmooze with your friend, or to go out for a coffee, or to come late, and the whole ruach of the Beis Medrash goes down, that's Amalek. That's what they want to accomplish. Now ask yourself what you want to accomplish. There are yeshivas where Purim night, they have a seder the whole night. They learn the whole night of Purim, and then they daven vasikin, and read the Megillah, and let everybody get a little sleep, and then go for the Suda and give it their Shalach Manos. But to spend this kind of money on Shalach Manos, for us, it's very classy, don't get me wrong. And if you have the disposable income, but think for a minute, if instead that amount of money you were going to spend on your Shalach Manos, I'm not saying not to have Shalach Manos. Shalach Manos is a beautiful thing. It makes Shalom Bein Ish L'Reyehu. People loved my noodle kugel. It was not expensive. There's noodles and eggs and cinnamon and vanilla and raisins and fruit cocktail. I don't know if there was anything else in it. Sugar. Must have been other things. Little aluminum pans. And everyone enjoys it. People like my hamantashen. And I think it's a mitzvah provide people with Purim Hamantash, and the deprived people in Eretz Yisrael don't get a chance to have a Purim Hamantash. Sometimes I'd go to America before Purim, and I'd find in a bakery nice, beautiful Purim Hamantash, and I wouldn't have to make them myself. Stick them in a little plastic bag and put a little twister on it, you know what I mean? But ask yourself what your priorities are going into Purim. And what is it that's going to be what Klal Yisrael celebrated on Purim? Yeah, Kimu v'kiblu, Kabbalas HaTorah, thanking HaKadosh Baruch Hu, recognizing the Nisim, or is it a celebration of gross materialism? And like I say, if this is important to you and to the people who are getting it, and it will create, Shalom ben Ish L'Re'ehu, and you say, I have no choice, I have to go to all of these websites and buy all this Mishagasim and stick in a little bit of food also to make a Shalach Manos. Okay, if you travel in those circles, then that's considered good. But if one person this year instead goes and buys a paper bag, and you know what? It could be a plastic bag, it could be a vinyl bag, it could be a cloth, I don't care. And you put in stuff that people actually want to eat. And if it's actually something you use at the Suda, wow, then I think you're actually getting the mitzvah. But like I say, I'm not here to judge anybody. I'm only here to share my own sense of frustration, and I hope everybody has found it meaningful. And now, of course, as my producer always sends me appreciation comments to share with everybody. Dear Rabbi Orlofsky, a big thank you for all your shiurim/shows. I've really trained people over the years. My wife introduced me to your content, and I have not looked back ever since. My wife and myself are avid fans of your shows, and it is appropriate that we share our anniversary with your birthday, 3rd of Shvat. Oh, Baruch Hashem. We celebrated our anniversary this year with a big Rabbi Orlofsky cake. Without going into too much detail, it was very tasty. Please go into more detail. I want to hear about the Rabbi Orlofsky cake. Did it have a picture of me? Was it shaped like me? In which case I would see why it was a big Rabbi Orlofsky cake. Mazel tov on your birthday, and may you continue ad mea ve'esrin bebrias u'bekoyach. A fan from the UK. P.S. You can get Charles Turwit shirts with pockets for those who suffer from vibrations. And, of course, Ari, the producer, put in a little note here. You mentioned them in your annoying episode because he knows I would never remember any of the things that I say. This is, in fact, a Charles Turwit shirt with a pocket. My son had to have them made special. Thank you for that. Love the podcast. Love is capitalized. Going through a difficult time, so the annoying podcast with a breath of fresh air. I laughed out loud repeatedly, and that's something we all need more of. Yes, we do. Please, please take care of your health. I'm trying. One of the things I did, because, one of my problems with my diabetes is I stopped checking my blood. So as far as I know, I'm fine. I worry about you terribly. Don't worry. Because Baruch Hu had the chance to take me 12 years ago, and he doesn't want me. So I'm just going to linger. So sein gesund und stark to 120. By the way, I would love to join the Pesach program, but I have a tradition to only do Pesach at home. But it sounds amazing. I wish tremendous hatzlacha and tons of parnasa. Anyone who has a minhag not to eat out and not to go, I understand. And we'll miss you. We'll be thinking of you. And somebody wrote me an interesting thing. They said, do you have a day option? So we're going to make a day option for somebody who wants to come out for Chol Hamoed, just for the day, and I'll work it out with the hotel, have facilities, join us for dinner. I think it'll be a fun thing if anybody's in Eretz Yisrael and wants to spend the day in the hotel. Of course, if you don't eat out, it's not going to be as much fun, but And there are some people who say, I wish I could come, but I can't come, but I'd like to come at least for a day. So we're gonna bring that as an option. And that's it for this episode. If you want to find out more about the show, you can go to my website, RabbiOrlofsky.com. You can send me an email. You can make a comment. You can sign up for one of our online shiurim. You can sponsor an episode, sponsor a Parsha in 5, sponsor a question and answer. You can do something, about my car, which is not running too well. It's 12 years old. Or if you want to do something about starting the seminary, which we mentioned at the beginning. I'll settle even for a yeshiva. If you want to make a yeshiva, I'll go there. And that's it. There's lots of stuff you can do there. You can read articles. You can do all kinds of things there. All kinds of fun and exciting things. That's it for this week. Until next time, I am Rabbi Orlofsky, and this has been the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.
It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. The Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Knowledge and wisdom will help you grow. Lots of fun in every episode, and we don't have to rhyme. No, we don't. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show on RabbiOrlofsky.com. Torah anytime, YouTube and more. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Till next time, till we meet again. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.